All right, welcome 8th graders. Glad to have you back. It's been a while since we've done a video tutorial, but we got one tonight. So get out your pencil, get out your paper. Let's take a little bit of notes. So the topic today is exponents. Actually, the real topic is negative exponents. All right, but we're going to just review a little bit about exponents. So here we've been covering exponents when you have a base. This is the base number, the big number is the base, the tiny number is the power. So that just reads 2 to the 4th power. And we understand that, hey, when it says 2 to the 4th power, it just means how many times you're multiplying 2 to 1 by, which just means 1 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 16. 2 to the 4th power is really 16 because you're multiplying 2 to 1 4 times. 1 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, so moving on. We don't really need to cover much more than that. What I really want to talk about, what I want you to take notes on, is this topic right here. Negative integers as exponents. Because this part gets a little complicated. Please take notes, all right? So negative integers as exponents. In order for you to understand this, I want to break it down with these 3 problems, how they look. They are similar but look different. So this first one is 2 to the 3rd power. The second one is negative 2 to the 3rd power. And the third one is 2 to the negative 3rd power. That's the one we really want to discuss right here. But in order to cover this one, I want to back up a couple steps. All right, so first one, 2 to the 3rd power. Well, you guys know that just means I'm going to take 2 and multiply it to 1. How many times? 3 times, which is 8. Negative 2 to the 3rd power means you're going to take 1 and multiply it by negative 2. How many times? 3 times. That's a negative. And what does that equal? Well, that equals negative 8. Yes, because you've got positive 4 times negative 2. Positive times negative gives you a negative. The third one, well, that's more complicated. Because this says I'm going to take 1 and multiply it to 2, but I'm going to do it a negative 3 times. Huh? I'm going to multiply 2 to 1 a negative 3 times, which is very abstract. Very abstract. But then you have to start thinking, well, negative is just the exact opposite of positive. Okay? Positive, negative, opposite. So think about multiplication. What's the exact opposite of multiplying? Dividing. Yeah. So really, when you say a negative 3 times 2 to the negative 3rd power, it really means you're going to take 1 and divide it by 2 3 times. It really means this. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Go back. It really means you're going to take 1 and divide it by 2. How many times? 3 times. You're going to go 1 divided by 2, divided by 2, divided by 2. Well, this is kind of hard math. When you look at that, you don't really know what's the answer. But if you write it as a fraction, it becomes easier math. And one thing I hope you guys understand is when you divide by 2, that's the same thing as multiplying by a half. For example, if I take 6 and I divide it by 2, well, that's 3. But if I take 6 and I multiply by a half, well, maybe some of you guys remember this, maybe not, but when you have a whole number times a fraction, you change this to a fraction, which means 6 over 1. Then you multiply across, which gives you 6 halves. All I do is multiply numerator, numerator, denominator, denominator. And 6 divided by 2, this is 6 halves, which is just 3. So dividing by 2 is the exact same thing as multiplying by a half. You're going to always get the same amount. So instead of saying I'm going to take 1 divided by 2, divided by 2, divided by 2, I'm going to write it like this: 1 times a half, times a half, times a half, which now this is easier math because 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So if I have 2 to the negative 3rd power, that's really 1/8. Notice that is the inverse of 2 to the 3rd power. 2 to the 3rd power is 8. 2 to the negative 3rd power is 1/8. So it's just the inverse. Whenever you have a negative power, you're really going to have the inverse of its positive power, if that makes sense. Because I'm really starting to lose myself here on this kind of stuff. It's getting very, very confusing. I know. Okay. All right, so let's just do this. So if it says 4 to the negative third power, 4 to the third power means you're going to do 1 and multiply by 4. How many times? 3 times. So 4 to the negative third power means you're going to take 1 and multiply by 1/4. How many times? 3 times. Why 1/4? Because dividing by 4 and multiplying by a fourth is the exact same thing. You divide by 4 or multiply by 4, you're going to get the exact same amount. I'm starting to get this. Yeah, all right. All right, so 3 to the negative second power. So 3 to the second power just means I'm going to take 1 and multiply by 3 2 times, which is 9. Oh, 3 to the negative second power means I'm going to take 1 and multiply by 1/3 2 times, just like over here. So this, 3 to the negative second power is 1/9. 3 to the second power is 9. Remember we talked about the inverse. That's all you're doing is you're getting the inverse of its positive power. So the inverse of 9 is 1/9, because 9 is really 9 over 1. So the inverse, when you flip it over, you get 1 over 9. So the inverse of 4 to the third power, well, it's 64, right? 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. The inverse would be 1/64. So what some students and teachers automatically do is when they get this negative integer, all right, 3 to the negative second power, they just automatically write it over 1 and make it positive. What? This is what they do. Instead of writing 3 to the negative second power, they write it over 1 and they say 3 to the second power, 3 to the positive power. So that kind of helps, maybe. So here's what I want you guys to try to do. And you might have to watch back this video tutorial again to understand what I just did, rewind it. But on this page here, solve these 4 problems. Solve these 4 problems. Again, each one has a negative exponent in it. Solve these 4 problems and we'll go over it in class. And then we'll have some time to discuss this. Questions? All right. Hope you guys had a great day. Bye-bye now.